the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Mrs. Dahlkemper.
Thank you, Chairman Schuler, and I thank you for convening this critical hearing on the role of automobile dealerships in rural communities and really throughout this country. And I want to certainly thank the panel of witnesses for your testimony today. I think it's been very valuable for us to hear your personal stories, and as well as you, Dr. Goss, to kind of look at things in maybe a larger scale. You know, since I had my first phone call from one of my dealers, I've been trying to understand this issue and trying to understand exactly how this occurred. And as we seem to come today, with no conclusion as to exactly what kind of business model was looked at to make these determinations. And personally, my brother-in-law was an executive at Chrysler for many years, and he and I argued many times about the business model that they were using. I argued with this probably for a dozen years before he finally left the company about the business model they were using and where they were going. But I have a couple questions for you that I just want to understand. Would you, Mr. Thomas or Mr. Allison, first of all, when are you looking at the time frame for closure of your dealerships?
2010, GM says 2010 is when they expect our wind down. We can't order any new 2010 model vehicles. We can stay in business, and they say we buy them from another dealer. They tell us to do.
So you have the 2009s, but you can't get any 2010s, which are probably coming out or
That's right.
have come out already.
The only way
right?
we can get 2010 model vehicles is get them through another dealer.
So they aren't selling any new product?
None.
Okay. So you will wind down next year?
2010, October 2010.
Okay, but you may not be able to keep your doors open that long because you won't be able to get any product, basically, unless you buy them from another
Unless we
dealer.
buy them from other dealers.
Okay. Mr. Allison?
Yes, ma'am. That would be the same for us.
Okay. Have you considered, could you and would you consider selling a different brand?
I've been offered an import,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to do that.
Why?
Well, I've been GM 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
Our customers, our community depend on GM vehicles. I don't want to start switching them, try to I just don't want to do it. I don't want to retrain our employees. I don't want to change our customers. That's GM loyal people. I think they're going to change, but
Because you mentioned the Ford dealership, and you think that they will go to Ford because
think
it's
they'll go to
well, obviously convenience for one
Exactly.
being probably the biggest factor there.
exactly.
Do you think that there would be another individual in your town who would say, well, okay, Mr. Thomas isn't here any longer, and there's only Ford, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to sell, whoever, Honda, Toyota, whoever?
I don't think that there'll be another dealer. Never's a long time, but I think in this environment, in this economy, I think it's going to be a long time before the economy straightens out. And the cost now to start a new dealership would be prohibitive.
Mr. Allison, can you comment on that?
Yes, ma'am. I, like Mr. Thomas, if we don't go forward with General Motors, there would only be Ford in our town. And I agree. The cost would be astronomical to establish a brand-new dealership from scratch.
Can you use your same facilities if you wanted to? I mean, you own that building, right?
Yes, ma'am. We certainly
So you could do that, but you'd have to retool and.
That would be an option, but like Mr. Thomas, probably the most loyal General Motors dealers are the small dealers. I mean, we literally eat, breathe, and live GM.
I guess my question is then, as you were, as we were looking at the automobile industry in this country failing really in their business model, did you have any concerns about that long term? Were you concerned about where the business model was going as you see our foreign competitors were really taking a bigger and bigger share of the market?
Yes, I do.
So I guess I'm just trying to understand the loyalty. If you can explain that to me a little bit, why you would not go with another dealer.
I was
Mr.
just going to say, I certainly wouldn't close out that alternative at all. It's just that my first wish would be to continue forward with General Motors, and as would, I think, the people in our community and certainly our employees.
Dr. Goss, do you have any comment on this? I mean, just from you, because you seem to know a lot of what's going on in many different areas.
Well, at this juncture, as everyone in the room knows, this is a tough time for the economy. These decisions are being made at a critical time for many of these communities, and many of the communities that we survey, I survey 15 states, a lot of rural areas. They're under tremendous stress, and this is just another nail in some cases in the coffin. And I'm not certain you can move that quickly and not suffer some significant long-term generational impacts.
There is a piece of legislation there's 271 sponsors on that I've signed on to, called the Automobile Economic Restoration or Rights Restoration Act of 2009. Are you familiar with that piece of legislation?
Yes, ma'am.
Obviously, there's many of us in this Congress who are very concerned about this. I have many dealerships in my own district that have closed, and as I said, I'm trying to continue to understand. So I guess just kind of staying on it, just because my time is expired, but what would the cost be if you wanted to start up a new dealership with a different brand? I mean, just, can you give me a kind of a ballpark?
I talked to one that out of pocket about $700,000 for the one that I've talked to for their initial package, and that doesn't include inventory. That includes their training, their signage, some of the equipment they require you to buy. The initial package is about $700,000, and then your facility's got to meet their specifications. Then so you have to change, redesign, make your facility meet theirs. Like GM. GM wants theirs all to look the same. Well, you'd have to do the same thing. Again, I'd have to do not the same thing I did in my building in 2000, but I'd have to redo it. I'd have to reshape it. I'd have to recolor it. And my building's all stucco. I'd have to redo all the signage, all the fascia.
So basically, the investment that you put in there, there's no value to that,
No.
and you'd have to outlay a very, very large sum of money to
Well, the
take on
initial on the
dealers.
one that I've looked at is $700,000.
Have you looked at anything, Mr. Allison?
Yes, ma'am, and my experience is similar to Mr. Thomas's.
Okay.
Obviously, the outlay would be, we already have facilities, so it would be to retrofit or to change those facilities to meet their requirements.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chairman. I yield back.